Alright, so um, we went through the genetics vocab and we went through meiosis and sexual reproduction. Now we're going to use that information to figure out how can we determine the possibilities of having different children. So, people use this all the time if they have a genetic disease that runs in the family, because you don't necessarily want to pass down a serious genetic disease. So, what we're going to do is do some problems here and show you how to do Punnett squares to figure out what is the problem of passing on genetic diseases. Now, I didn't pick genetic diseases for these traits, I just picked random traits here. Alright, so heterozygous. Remember, that means a big and a little. So in this person's um, cells, they have a big T on one chromosome and a little t on another chromosome, and they can pass down either one to their gametes. Homozygous recessive, there again, they have one chromosome has a little t, the other chromosome has a little t, and they're going to pass one onto one gamete and one onto another gamete. Alright, so what we do to show that is we use something called a Punnett square. So instead of drawing all these cells like we did in the sexual reproduction, we're just going to cheat and we're going to use this thing called a Punnett square. You can put either person on the top. I'm going to put the first person here, big T, little t. So you put one of the letters over one square and another letter over the second square. And then I'm going to take their other letters and I'm going to put them to the left. Little t, little t. Alright. So what this symbolizes is all the different possibilities that of their children. So instead of drawing all those cells, and so what you did in the sexual reproduction is you took these and you combined them. So if it had a big T and a little t, then you showed you had big T, little t, and then you had to do it again and little t, and go through and show that this is like a shortcut. So this is going to show every single possibility of the offspring. So we have a big T coming down into that square, and a big T coming down into that square because there's a big T on top. So you just drag it and you put it in each of the squares below it. Same with this little t. Just put it in each of the squares below it. And then this little t, you just bring it across. And this little t, you just bring it across. Alright, so now your genotype set, the possible genotypes. So these are all your possible offspring here. So your offspring could be big T, little t, or little t, as far as the genotypes there. Alright, so the genotype, the percentages here, is there's 4 boxes. Each box is worth 25% because 1/4 of 100 is 25. Or if you think of it as a dollar, a quarter is worth 25 cents because 4 quarters make up a dollar. Alright, so each one of these boxes is worth 25%. So if there's 2 boxes with big T, little t, then this is a 50% chance that you're going to have a kid with big T, little t. If 2 boxes are little t, that means you have a 50% chance of having a kid with little t. And if I did that over here, so this is one possibility, so this is the other possibility, and then we just do it again because the one person can only pass down little t, we get the same ratio here. So there's 2 chances of getting little t, and there's 2 chances of getting big T, little t after fertilization. Alright, so this is exactly what we just did before, but now we're using a shortcut. Now the phenotype percentages, what I do for that is sometimes this gets a little bit confusing. So remember, this is the genotype because it's the genes. So the phenotype is the appearance. So if you look up here, we have tall and short. And since tall was heterozygous, that means tall is dominant because it has a big T. So what we're going to do is I circle all the boxes that have a big T in it, and there's 2 of them, so it's 50% that there's tall and 50% chance that there's one that's short. Alright, that doesn't always come out that way. It doesn't always come out the way that the phenotype and genotype percentages are the same, but for this instance it did. Alright, so let's go do the next one. Alright, now this time we have Come on. My eraser's a little slow. Alright, this time we have a homozygous dominant. So homozygous means the same, dominant means big letter, so we got big R, big R. So that's the first thing you always have to do, is figure out what these letters are. So I like to put these letters like right below it before I even start my Punnett square. And then red cow. Alright, well, it doesn't tell me what the red cow is, but since the white cow is homozygous dominant, so the white cow, this is dominant, then the red cow has to be recessive. And the only way to get recessive is to have two little r's. So, and I skipped one. So I'm on the third one down here, sorry. I'll come back and do that one next. So if we have big R, R square, little r. So I always like to do the big letters first, so they go in first, so they don't confuse me. So big R down, big R down, and then the little r's across. Alright, so then our genotype is that it's 100% big R, little r, because they all have big R, little r, and then all my boxes have a big R in it, so the phenotype percentage is 100% white. Alright, it all has a big R in it, so 100% that is dominant, the white cow. Alright, up here, we have two heterozygous black cats. So that means black cat, if it's two of them, that means they're both heterozygous. And heterozygous means big little. So, draw my Punnett square. Big little. Big little. Alright, so now I'm going to put my big ones. I'm going to go across with this R there. I'm going to take this big R down. And then I'm going to do my little r's. Little r goes across, little r goes across. And again, I just do the big r's first to make sure I always have the big R first in the boxes. Alright, so now the genotype for percentage for this one is going to be, big R is going to be 25%. Because there's only one that's big R. Big R, little r is going to be 50%. And then little r is going to be 25% again. So one way to double check yourself is these numbers should always add up to 100. So 25 plus 25 is 50. 50 plus 50 is 100. So that's good. Now for our phenotype. So I always do the dominant first. So the dominant here is black, because black was heterozygous. So I'm going to circle all the ones that have a big R, and there's 3 of them. So 75%, 25 plus 25 plus 25 is 75% black. And I'm just going to assume the other color is white. And that is going to be 25%, because there's only one little r. And again, these two numbers should add up to 100. Alright, so let's just do 2 more here. And that will be it for this. Now, if you start getting a hang of these, you can actually start memorizing. So that heterozygous, that's always going to be the case. It's never going to change. So heterozygous will always give you 25%, 50%, 75% percentages for your genotypes, and then 75, 25 for your phenotypes. Alright, last one, or last two. Around P, so I'm not going to do that one yet because it didn't tell me if it's dominant or recessive. Heterozygous wrinkled P. Alright, well this one's heterozygous, big R, little r. And then if wrinkled P is heterozygous, it has a big R, so it is dominant. So that means the round P had to be recessive, or little r, little r. So, do my Punnett square, big R, little r, little r, little r. I'm going to bring the big R's down. And then the rest are all little r's here. And that's all I have left. So my genotype here is big R, little r, and little r, little r. And it's 50-50. And then my phenotype percentages is the same thing, because there's only 2 with a big letter. So it's 50% wrinkled and 50% round. All right, last one. Two recessive green aliens. Well, this one's easy. All right, if they're both recessive, that means they're both little r, little r. So fill that in. So that means all our boxes have to be little r's. So genotype is little r, 100%. And then phenotype is 100% green. All right, one quick thing before I stop. If I go back up here to the heterozygous ones, this is the two heterozygous people is a special case that they like to harp on over and over again. So, if you noticed, with the two heterozygous black cats, neither of them, if they were both big R or little r, they were both black. But remember when we did it, they could have a 25% chance of having a white cat. Alright, so they like to harp on that at all. So whenever there's two heterozygous involved, there's always still a possibility of having the recessive trait. And this is when you're talking about traits that skip generations. Like maybe one of their grandparents was white, passed on that little r to them, and then these two are carriers. They carry the little r, and they could both pass on that little r to their child, and that child could be a different color. So that's how sometimes children can look completely different from their parents, because both of those parents are carrying that recessive letter. All right, and that's it.